You are just play acting your heart out at being an awesome person, it's not going to work and you are going to explode. Ask me how I know, you guys. Hi everybody, welcome back to Project Happy Home. For those of you who are new here, I'm Tanya, doctor, lawyer turned homeschool mom of 3 kids ages 9, 6, and newly 5. If you're interested in videos about secular homeschooling, raising a child with ADHD, and living a more essentialist lifestyle in general, you have come to the right place. In today's video, I'm continuing my series on Parenting ADHD 101, and I am doing this in collaboration with my friend Danielle over at TakeCareMama, who has a son with ADHD just like I do, and we wanted to talk about triggers, but this time we wanted to talk about mom triggers in particular, or dad triggers, and what we can do to minimize them. So in the last video we did in the series, we talked about how we can address our children's triggers and what we could do about them. In this video, the difference is to isolate what triggers us. So it's not so much about controlling our responses to what triggers them or learning about their triggers or anything. It's about learning about ours. And I said in the last video that you should learn to become a trigger scientist, and I think that is doubly true when it comes to ourselves. I think that a lot of times when we have a child with ADHD or any kind of emotional sensitivity, we want to fix it. We want to tweak it and fix it and end it and make that behavior stop. And I think that fundamentally accepting neurodiversity as a reality in our children's lives and in our lives is the very first step to accepting that the goal here should not be to stop their meltdown or behavior or whatever for our sake. The goal should be to learn how to be the best support and the most nurturing environment for our child. We are the major factor in our child's environment, right? We are that living thing that interacts with them the most. And as a homeschool mother, I can tell you, I am the thing that interacts with my child the most. So in terms of affecting my child's self-esteem and just inner view about himself, I am the one who does a lot of that. I affect that on a grand scale, and that's a responsibility that I do not take lightly. I fail often and am less than I would like to be often. And it happens because I don't respect myself and my own boundaries. I think it's really important to realize that we are just people. We're not these extraordinary parents. We're not people who were born for this. I'm not into the platitudes. I think that having a neurodiverse child is really tough, and it can be really tough at the most surprising and annoying of times. At times when you think everything should be going fine, or times when no one else would have a problem with whatever just happened, I think it requires a lot of us, and not in a martyr-like way. I think it requires a lot of us in terms of self-reflection. The more we can self-reflect and acknowledge that we're not perfect people, we have limits, we're all made differently. There's no one perfect ADHD mom out there. Some of us are highly sensitive. Hello. Some of us are just more trigger happy. We go from 0 to 60 really fast. That's just our personality. That's how our childhood has brought us up, or the way we're wired. Some of us are just more happy-go-lucky. When you think about the books, in the Harry Potter series and everybody getting sorted into houses, we have different personalities to begin with. It's important for us to acknowledge who we are in order to be the most compassionate parent for our kid. Because if you try to be this perfectly calm parent who never reacts badly, who never gets upset, who always has the right way of dealing with your child's meltdown, and you're stretching yourself into a version of yourself that doesn't exist, you are just play acting your heart out at being an awesome person, it's not going to work and you are going to explode. Ask me how I know, you guys. I know because I have tried this, and it is in my personality to aim for perfection. It's a hard thing for me to accept and absorb a growth mindset as opposed to a perfectionistic attitude. So when it comes to parent triggers and minimizing parent meltdowns, I think a really important thing to do is just to evaluate first, who are you? Are you someone who has a quick fuse? Are you someone who is slow to anger? Are you someone who can't abide messes? Are you someone who can't abide backtalk? What is it and when is it that you feel the most out of control? Like, when is it that you do something that makes you disappointed with yourself, where you wish I wish I hadn't said those words. I wish I hadn't done it that way. Record that for a few days. This is very similar to my video on how to be a trigger scientist for your kid. Dispassionately try to record and take note of when you freak out, because real talk, we all freak out. We all have moments where we wish we hadn't done it that way, where we rue the words that came out of our mouth. No one of us is perfect. And if you are, I don't think you really need to waste your time with this video, but I certainly am not. And it helps to acknowledge, I messed up here. What was going on today when I messed up? Was I worried about something that was going on with work? Did I not create time for myself? Did I not set a boundary saying, like, right now I can't talk about this. I'll talk to you about it in 5 minutes because I'm doing this right now. Did I not carve out time for myself that day? Did I not have any time to myself in the morning where I got to read a book and drink some coffee or drink some tea? Did I not take care of myself the night before? Has it been a couple of days since I've showered? What is going on exactly? If you're the type of person who's highly sensitive to noise and upset, it's important to carve out a household structure that protects you too. I think sometimes as parents of neurodiverse kids, we can spend so much effort and energy on making a happy home for them that we forget that a lot of that depends upon us being happy and content. If it doesn't make you happy and content to have loud inside voices and all of this understanding about loud inside voices, then don't do that. Set a household culture where that's not okay for you, because our needs are just as important as our children's needs. And that's often a bad thing to say in today's society, but it's true. It really is. So my first practical step for you would be to acknowledge who you are. There's no best way of being. Yeah, it would be great if we could all listen to children screaming and playing happily and we didn't go crazy. We could hear the loud sounds of children jumping on beds and we weren't freaked out. That would be wonderful, whatever. But that's not reality. All of us aren't made that way. Some of us are. I have a best friend who has 5 kids, whose house is at a decibel level that literally is unbearable for a person like me. But she's super cheerful in that environment, and that's great. But if you're not that person, it's important for you to have a house where your children understand that you are a person too, and it's important that we try to make a house that's happy for everyone. There's this medium. We all have to compromise on that, right? Not just us, but our children too. Because the more our baseline is sort of met, the easier it will be for us to be effective and compassionate with our kids when they have their meltdowns. Because if you're pulling from empty, if you're just, a hair away from your own meltdown, it is really hard to address a child who's having a hard time with compassion. It just is. And that comes from fundamentally not treating yourself with compassion. I'm really bad at this, you guys. I do not say this as some sort of person on high. I will push myself and ignore my own needs to the brink. So this concept of writing down what triggers me, acknowledging what I'm bad at, has been really helpful. For example, I used to melt down every single day, pretty much, when we would get into the garage on the way to going to something like a gymnastics class or a parkour class or what have you. Because my kids would be milling about, there'd be a million shoes around, somebody would invariably not have socks on and have to go back in the house to get socks. Literally, my mommy business card says something we were probably late because we were arguing with a kid about socks, which is true. And I would always just melt down, and it became a habit, a habitual trigger for me. I would tense literally on the way to the garage while everybody was milling about and somebody didn't have their water bottle, or somebody else wanted socks, or somebody else wanted shoes that they left in the backyard, I would freak out. I would scream. I would bemoan my kids and how irresponsible they were or whatever, and how they couldn't get it together. And I would say a lot of things that I didn't mean. That's not good for anybody. That wasn't good for me. That wasn't good for my kids to hear and everything. So once I sort of established that, this is a real trigger spot for me. This is an area in which I have gotten it into my head. My head has developed a pattern where I get upset every single time. I fixed it for myself. And the way I fixed it was basically saying, okay, you guys, we have to leave in about 10 minutes. I am going to tell you what you need to do. You need water bottles, you need backpacks, you need this type of outfit and this type of shoe, and I'm going to wait in the car for you. And that is what I started doing. I would just walk past them into the car, turn the car on, start cooling it down, and I would literally listen to a podcast or something, not look at them, not grit my teeth and be like, oh, it's still taking so long. And just, I have allotted myself this much time for them to do whatever they want in whatever order they want. And it became so much better almost immediately, because I acknowledged that that was just a difficult thing for me to do. And I realized that, there is a workaround. So when you acknowledge what you have as trigger points, the next step is to create a workaround for yourself that allows the job to get done, that addresses your child's needs respectfully, but also respects you and acknowledges where you can't do more, where you just need this to care for yourself. I needed that little cocoon of space in the car where I couldn't hear them arguing about random things, and I just gave them that time, that nice 10 to 15 minute window where they could mess about and do their thing and get in the car. Everyone was cheerful. It made our days so much better. That's what I recommend to you. It is this idea in our heads of how we are supposed to be, how our lives are supposed to be. It is that idea that rolls around in our head that messes it up. Don't let that happen to you. You are a good parent. You can be a better parent, because we all can be. The way to do it is to be honest with yourself about who you are. Be honest with yourself about when you mess up and why that happened. Really look at it and pick it apart. What was going on, and ask yourself, how can I make this better for myself? How can I make myself feel better during this thing that triggers me so that I can be a better parent? Just like in an airplane, put that oxygen mask on yourself first. Breathe through it when you are triggered. Give yourself a moment. If you need to leave the situation, leave the situation. You do not have to show up as the perfect parent all the time. It is okay for you to remove yourself from situations while the kids are safe and to take care of yourself for a moment. I would also recommend, as a third step, really reflecting on your successes, because it helps to give yourself a pat on the back. And I will tell you, I'll do another video on why I wear these rubber, jelly bangles. I used to do it as a way to track sort of my negative things. I used to move over a bangle if I did something bad, if I disappointed myself in an interaction with my kids. And now I move over a bangle when I do something good. So when I do something that makes me feel good, that makes them feel good, where we have a positive movement, I move them over. And my goal is to move them all over by the end of the day. Some days I do it, some days I don't, but it reminds me to look for the good, not just for my triggers, but also for my good. For moments when maybe I was triggered, but I handled it well, it gives me an opportunity to reward myself. It is all about reframing our lives. Don't think of it always as what you did wrong. Don't think of it always as how this should have gone. Think of it sometimes as like what you could do right and what your reality is right now. Who are you right now? Who are your kids right now? Be honest with yourself. It will be okay in time. It is not ever an emergency, really, when these things happen. So calm yourself. Be kind to the small animal of your soul in the same way that we're learning to be kind to our kids. And it will all work out in the end. And if it doesn't, it's not the end, right? So that was it, you guys. It was more of a chatty video, but I hope you found it helpful. Be sure to check out my friend Danielle's video over at TakeCareMama. I'll link it down in the description box below. As always, I really do value your time, and thank you for spending some of it with me, and I wish you the very best day.